welcome to CEI. This is Dr. Sekhar. Today I'll continue the preparation of bases. Last day few methods I've discussed and one method is left to be discussed today. That is, I've already written over here, that is by the addition of alkalis. By the addition of alkalis like NOH, KOH or NH4OH to metallic salts. One by one I'll discuss about the method of preparation. Now first I'll show the reaction with copper sulfate. Very interesting. Now if you take the copper sulfate solution, aqueous solution of copper sulfate, which is blue in color, if we add gradually NOH or KOH, we get a pale blue PPT of cupric hydroxide or copper 2 hydroxide. Again, instead of NOH or KOH, if we add ammonium hydroxide, dropwise mind it, then first I will see or we will find that light blue PPT or pale blue PPT, and if you go on adding of NH4OH dropwise, you will find that this light blue PPT or pale blue PPT gradually dissolves to form a dark blue solution or Prussian blue solution or inky blue solution due to the formation of soluble tetraamine copper complex. That I am showing the equations or reactions, chemical reactions taking place in this case. Now copper sulfate plus sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide, if we take, we get cupric hydroxide or copper 2 hydroxide and Na2SO4. Now you see that copper sulfate is a blue solution, and when sodium hydroxide added, we get pale blue PPT. But if we add excess NOH, it doesn't dissolve. That means it will remain as a cupric oxide. Does not dissolve or does not react. That means blue solution will produce pale blue PPT or light blue PPT by the addition of sodium hydroxide to copper sulfate or by the addition of KOH. But ammonium hydroxide, I'll show the reaction, I've already told you. Now copper sulfate plus ammonium hydroxide, we get copper hydroxide plus ammonium sulfate. Now this is pale blue PPT. Similar reactions takes place in case of NOH or KOH, but here the difference is this copper hydroxide dissolves in excess ammonium hydroxide, plus ammonium sulfate. If you add, we get this is deep blue solution or inky blue solution or Prussian blue solution. So I repeat, you see the board. Now when ammonium hydroxide added dropwise, we'll get the pale blue PPT due to the formation of cupric hydroxide, but this precipitate dissolves in excess ammonium hydroxide. If we continue addition of dropwise ammonium hydroxide, this pale blue PPT gradually dissolves to form deep blue solution or inky blue solution or Prussian blue solution due to the formation of soluble tetraamine copper sulfate. Due to the formation of soluble tetraamine copper sulfate, we get inky blue or deep blue solution. So copper sulfate I've discussed. Now next is zinc sulfate. Now in case of zinc sulfate, if we add NOH or KOH, first of all we'll get gelatinous white PPT of zinc hydroxide. But if you go on adding NaOH or KOH to precipitate, gelatinous precipitate, this precipitate dissolves to form colorless solution due to the formation of soluble salt like sodium zincate or potassium zincate. That means in case of NaOH, KOH, there are two types of reaction. First of all, we'll get gelatinous white PPT of zinc hydroxide, which dissolves in excess of sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide to form sodium zincate or potassium zincate, which is soluble in water. So we'll get or we'll find that gelatinous precipitate gradually dissolves to form transparent colorless solution. Now, in case of ammonium hydroxide, what do we see? In case of ammonium hydroxide, if you add dropwise ammonium hydroxide to solution of zinc sulfate colorless, we will find gelatinous white PPT like zinc hydroxide, like previous reactions. Again, if you go on adding dropwise ammonium hydroxide to the gelatinous PPT of zinc hydroxide, again this precipitate dissolves, gradually dissolves to form colorless solution due to the formation of different salts, that is tetraamine zinc sulfate, which is soluble in water. So we will get again colorless solution. NaOH, KOH colorless solution, the formation of zincate. Here we get the complex compound, the formation of complex compound which are soluble in water to get colorless transparent solution. So in these cases, observation will be same, but the reactions will be different. So I'll show the reactions. Zinc sulfate plus NaOH will get ZNOH whole twice, that is gelatinous white, gelatinous PPT. This is colorless solution. This is colorless solution. But this precipitate dissolves in excess. Excess due to the formation of sodium zincate plus water. This is colorless solution. This is colorless solution. This is PPT. This PPT dissolves with the formation of sodium zincate, which is soluble in water, so it is a colorless solution. Now, in case of NaOH and KOH, both will be the same. NaOH or KOH, both will be same. So, I repeat that NaOH, by the addition of NaOH, few drops will get gelatinous white PPT, but this precipitate dissolves when excess NaOH added due to the formation of sodium zincate, which is a colorless solution because it is soluble in water. But what will happen if we add ammonium hydroxide, zinc sulfate plus ammonium hydroxide, again we will get zinc hydroxide plus ammonium sulfate, but this zinc sulfate, zinc hydroxide, excess NH4OH, plus ammonium sulfate, we get tetraamine zinc sulfate. This is also colorless solution. This is also colorless solution. So let me conclude that like copper sulfate, zinc sulfate, when NaOH or KOH added, gelatinous white PPT is obtained, dissolves insoluble in excess NaOH or KOH, formation of zincate, sodium zincate or potassium zincate, which is soluble in water. That's why this colorless solution is obtained, because they are colorless. But ammonium hydroxide, again zinc hydroxide is obtained, gelatinous white PPT, but this specific is soluble in excess ammonium hydroxide, and the reason is different. Though it is a colorless solution, but it forms a complex compound which is known as tetraamine zinc sulfate, which is colorless and soluble in water. So the observation will be same. First step, gelatinous solid PPT in both the cases, and then this precipitate dissolves and to form colorless solution, but the different salts are obtained. So we discussed zinc ion and copper ion, or zinc salts or copper salts. Next I discuss with the silver salts. Now silver nitrate. If we use NaOH, we get silver hydroxide plus NaNO3. This is white PPT. This is colorless solution. This is colorless solution. All right. But if you use ammonium hydroxide, then we will get first of all we will get AgOH plus NH4Cl, and then AgOH dissolves water. This is soluble, colorless solution. This is white PPT. Okay. Now, in case of ammonium hydroxide, if we add silver chloride, we will get silver hydroxide PPT, that is white PPT, but this white PPT is soluble in excess ammonium hydroxide, excess, to form colorless solution due to the formation of soluble diamine silver hydroxide. But in this case, excess sodium hydroxide, it doesn't dissolve. Silver hydroxide doesn't dissolve in excess of sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide. But silver hydroxide dissolves in excess ammonium hydroxide because it forms a complex compound which is known as diamine silver hydroxide, which is soluble in water, and it is a colorless solution. Okay. So I have discussed with the silver ion, copper ion, and zinc ion. Next, ferrous and ferric. Ferrous and ferric. Ferrous chloride plus NaOH, you get ferrous hydroxide plus 2 NaCl or ferrous sulfate plus NH4OH. We get ferrous hydroxide plus ammonium sulfate. Now, this is dirty green precipitate, dirty green PPT. This is also dirty green PPT because same compound. Dirty green PPT. Okay, this is light green solution. Light green solution. This is also light green solution. Light green solution. So light green solution produces dirty green PPT in case of NaOH and NH4OH in both the cases, but they are insoluble in excess sodium hydroxide and ammonium hydroxide. These are different from the other three cases. They are produces hydroxide, respective hydroxide, but they are insoluble in excess of their ammonium hydroxide or sodium hydroxide. Okay. Now next is ferric chloride. Ferric chloride plus 3NOH, FeOH whole thrice plus 3NaCl or FeCl3 plus 3 ammonium hydroxide FeOH whole thrice plus 3 ammonium chloride. Now here interesting is this is yellow solution, this is also yellow solution, and this is red PPT, or you can say reddish brown PPT, reddish brown, depend concentration, reddish brown PPT. Okay, then let me conclude that in case of ferrous and ferric salts, they produce the respective hydroxides, but this respective hydroxide does not dissolve in excess of NOH or NH4OH. But in other three cases, we find that in case of copper sulfate, it is soluble in excess with ammonium hydroxide, but insoluble in excess sodium hydroxide. Zinc sulfate or zinc cation as a zinc salts, they are soluble in both NOH, KOH and NH4OH. First of all, they produces PPT, and this PPT is soluble in excess. Silver chloride or silver salts, in case we will get NOH, KOH, they precipitate, they do not dissolve excess, but they dissolve in excess ammonium hydroxide. And in case of aluminium, the last one, aluminium, in case of aluminium ion, we find aluminium hydroxide will be formed by the action of sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide, and they are soluble in excess of sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide to form the respective salts which are soluble in water, known as potassium aluminate or sodium aluminate. But in case of ammonium hydroxide, this aluminum hydroxide will be formed by the addition of ammonium hydroxide to aluminum salts, but insoluble in excess of ammonium hydroxide. Okay. Thank you very much. If you like this video, please like, share and subscribe. Thank you.